not agreed by majority of two groups of members, that is those returned by FC and those by GC who are present, declare the motion negatived. Ms. Claudia MO and Mr. LAM Cheuk-ting will each move a motion under the Legislative Council Powers and Privileges Ordinance. And the subject matter of the two motions is concerned about the construction works of the shut-in to Central Link. The LegCo Secretariat has informed members in writing that this council will proceed to a joint debate on the two motions. After the joint debate has come to a close, this council will first proceed to vote on Ms. Claudia MO's motion. Irrespective of whether Ms. MO's motion is passed or not, Mr. LAM Cheuk-ting may move his motion. The joint debate now begins. Members who wish to speak on the two motions will please press the Request to Speak button. I'll first call upon Ms. Claudia MO to speak and move her motion. Then I'll call upon Mr. LAM Cheuk-ting to speak, but he may not move his motion at this stage. Ms. Mo. President, I move that the motion as printed on the agenda be passed. When we talk about the shut-in Central Link, well, first of all, let me show you this. This scandal of the SCL, the shut-in Central Link. I can describe it with these words. Government condones and the MTR loses control. It's beyond anyone's imagination. Now there is the Independent Commission on Inquiries carrying on and hearing this about just the Hong Kong station. As you can see that whether it is the principal contractor, subcontractors or subcontractors, they have all lost control. No one knows what's going on, and there are people who knows that something wrong is going on, but they're afraid to report it, whereas some others said that, well, I have reported it, but they have been concealed. To be honest, to be brutally honest, the topic of my motion is this. Well, it's just like the high-speed rail. Well, as the chief executive said that, well, if you don't have any confidence, you have other alternatives. That's what she said about the XRL. I think the same applies to the shut-in Central Link. If you think that it is problematic, don't use it. I think that it is a ruffian way to put it, because this is a mega project using Hong Kong people's money, hard-earned money. When I first looked into it, I was quite happy because they have uncovered some archaeological sites. Well, I tolerated it when there was project cost overrun. However, it has gone too much. I am particularly concerned about what happened in Pt1. Well, as I've said that, they said if you're so afraid of the shut-in Central Link, just like the XRL, don't use it and it'll be safe and you don't have to worry. I think it's a meaningless way to put it. What is scary is that the problem of subsidence affecting residential buildings. I have a lot of newspaper cuttings. That's this one. Another concealment of the MTRCL about the subsidence scandal is the front page, 23 blocks, residential blocks in Pt1. It's subsidence in a mega scale. The MTRCL said, this is nothing, don't worry. But this affects people's lives, their homes. It's not just about a shopping mall. Of course, a shopping mall itself is important. But when it comes to residential area, it's about private property. Is the biggest asset of a lot of people, the flat they own. Don't do anything about people's home. Is their home their safe haven? Yes, it's important to have to go to work, but your home is your safe haven. It's very important. Well, you may say you're not worried when it comes to the exhibition center. I am equally concerned. It's just that it affects a lot of residential buildings. this is not just my personal property, my safe haven. It is also a multi-story residential building. So this is about life and limb. In addition to private property, it's not a toy you can play with. The MTR say that we have experts who have looked into it. Don't worry about structural safety. Well, I think when you refer to structural safety, it means that there is a very low risk of the building collapsing completely. But yes, today there is no structural problem. But what about tomorrow, next month, or the year after? You said that you have experts saying that you don't have to worry. So I don't have to worry. It is a fact that starting from 2016, the end of that year, you have been concealing this fact. And people talk about the penalty mechanism not effective enough. But it's beside the point. Mr. Cheuk, you know everything about it. You may be laughing. 70% of shares are held by the Hong Kong government. So one shareholder penalizing the other, so money passes hands, and that's it. It doesn't really matter how much they are fined because it's, after all, taxpayers' money. I'm talking about structural safety, compensation, and warranty. We do need powers and privilege ordinance to set up a select committee. Well, Mr. Lam Cheuk-ting's motion can be consolidated with mine for one single select committee. This is about residential areas in Hawaii. You do need to give an answer to owners, occupiers, and tenants. It is not commercial property. It is residential property. It's not the exhibition center. People have put their life saving into their home, their flat. Now we have subsidence. I don't want to talk about property prices because that is digressing. Because if you talk about property prices, well, it gives the impression that all they think about is money. It's not just that. Because, well, even if there is a drop in the property prices, how do you compensate them? Along Hawaii, there is the diaphragm wall. There are a lot of jargons. Diaphragm wall, what is it? It's called a diaphragm wall. Well, I just learned something. There is also the H-bar. There's supposed to be 7 layers, but it's cut to 6 layers. And an engineer told me, an engineer from NTRCL, told me that there is little difference whether it's 7 or 6 layers. It depends on the strength and the tension. On the tensile strength. But it's difficult to change the drawings. And Mr. Cheuk nodded and said that, well, yes, that can do. But you need the approval from the Highways Department. Well, you act and construct according to the drawing. You can't change the drawing without any approval. But why would they change the drawing without approval? They said they have asked, and they did it for efficiency. That's what they said. They said it's the same. Well, it's blatant that you want to rush to finish the job so that you can save on labor cost or material cost. I don't know. So there's jerry building. And you said that, well, it doesn't affect the load bearing. I don't know. I am not an engineer, and I'm still learning about civil engineering so that I will better understand this scandal. It's just too much because it seems that I hear something new every single day in August. That is outrageous. What does the Highways Department do? And I think the Transport and Housing Department was asleep. I am still about To Kwa Wan, the subsidence caused by the SEL. It's so infuriating. I find it so unpalatable. It is so disgusting. And it looks like it's snowballing. It feels like it is contagious.
Up there. 最緊要咧，要嘈佢咧。
What I'm angry about is the concealment. They pretended that nothing happened. And MTRCL engineers told me that you have to understand that for the safety coefficients, safety standards are set really high. So it's foolproof. Yes, there is a slight exceedance. Don't be too alarmed. And I said, well, I wasn't floored and I wasn't shocked to the core, but still I am worried because it is unfair. And these people were trying to shift the responsibility. At the end of August, there was major subsidence at the periphery, and there are 1,500 monitor points, and 130 of them show that there was exceedance. What does that mean? Say, for example, there is a figure 30 is okay, but if subsidence is more than 30, then it is a problem. So there are lots of exceedances. It's on a major scale. It's in To Kwa Wan. MTRCL said that, don't worry, the work's completed. In October last year, till now, there are still 20 locations that continue to show subsidence. So they are still subsiding. It's in a continuous tense. It happens to 9 buildings in particular. You said that you have very high safety parameters. Do you know the scope is it covers several major roads along To Kwa Wan, including Mata Wai Road, Mei Chin Tong Road, and you pretend that nothing's happening and you brush it aside and you elbow it away, hoping that the problem will disappear. No. Yes, the work was completed in 2016, and District Council asked questions. But they did not provide any figures. They hum and haw, and they thought they could muddle through. You said that the subsidence limits were set high, so it's very safe. However, they have taken the liberty to adjust it to cater for the subsidence, and they fluctuate to a wide range, just like the Hang Seng Index these days. I don't have to go into details because they are covered by the press. Originally, it was 47 millimeters. That is the safety standard. The limit is 47 millimeters, but then they adjusted it to 61 millimeters. So by how much has it subsided? 61 millimeters, exactly to that limit. So it's like it's a seasonal price. There is another one. The limit was 32 millimeters. But now they've changed it to 39 millimeters, saying that it's still very safe. And the actual subsidence was 35. It's a good fit. It includes the To Kwa Wan Municipal Building. There are people who go there to do their daily shopping. There are engineers telling the press that what is the most sensitive receivers? First, gas pipes and water pipes. So that should scare you. But if there is water shortage or stoppage, it doesn't matter. But what about gas? Ms. Mo, your time's up. Thank you.
我現在向各位提出
I now propose the question to you that the motion moved by Honourable Claudia MO be passed. Honourable LAM Cheuk-ting. Madam Deputy, I would like to speak on behalf of the Democratic Party to support Claudia MO's motion. I would also like to urge all members to support the motion that I'm moving in order to enable the audience in front of the TV set to understand what is going on. I'd like to explain my motion. I'm saying that this Council appoints a select committee to inquire into matters relating to the MTR Corporation Limited's alleged concealment of the substandard construction works and alterations to the construction drawings of the Sha Tin to Central Link, alleged failure to suspend the construction works and notify the public when the settlement of some monitoring points is found to have exceeded the preset trigger levels during the construction of 8 stations along the SCL, and subsequent proposal of relaxing the preset trigger levels for temporary suspension of works of the monitoring points near the construction site of the exhibition center station of SCL and other related matters, and that in the performance of its duties, the committee be authorized under Section 9(2) of the Legislative Council Powers and Privileges Ordinance to exercise the powers conferred by that ordinance. Madam Deputy, maybe some citizens and some colleagues from the pro-establishment camp may ask this question. Well, didn't the LegCo during the last term moved a similar motion? Why are you doing it again? Let me do some explanation here. The LegCo has the constitutional duty to monitor the executive. According to Article 64, it says that the government of Hong Kong Special Administrative Region must abide by the law and be accountable to the Legislative Council of the region. Well, what's happening is that we have a major governance crisis within the MTRCL. There is a major scandal here. The Hong Kong SARG is the major shareholder of the MTRCL. A number of government officials are sitting on the board of directors of the MTRCL. So it isn't just a matter of a listed company having a governance problem. It involves huge public interest. It is also a matter of government monitoring. The LegCo has a very important constitutional duty in relation to major issues. We are duty-bound to hold the government accountable to us, and we have to find out about the details. So, yes, we have got the Commission of Inquiry, but it shouldn't deny us, and it shouldn't take away our constitutional duty. So please don't hide behind the Commission of Inquiry, saying that since a COI has been set up and so the LegCo doesn't have to look into this matter. In fact, history tells us that in the past we also set up a select committee in addition to a Commission of Inquiry. Both went on hand in hand. So we have to discharge our constitutional duty, and please support my motion. Secondly, for the terms of reference of the COI, Well, in fact, the scope covers 4 points. First of all, to inquire into the facts and circumstances surrounding the platform, and then look into the facts and circumstances surrounding other works, and to come up with recommendations and the extent and adequacy of the monitoring control mechanisms. Well, when the CE suggested the scope of investigation, we were only at the midst of the scandal. There were still some other problems exposed after the appointment of the COI. Well, other than the case of the Hong Kong station, we know that there's a problem with the To Kwa Wan station as well as the exhibition station. Well, all such are not being covered by the terms of reference. Well, the SARG is being vague in its reply, saying that since project management is to be examined, so everything will be included. That's not how I understand it, because only Hong Lam station will be examined. The chairman of the COI, that is Mr. Hartman, can only confine his investigation to the scope of under the terms of reference. He can't be inclusive. Otherwise, he will be challenged if we go beyond the terms of reference. So, given the narrowness of the terms of reference, I'm afraid we cannot unearth the truth comprehensively. Let's take a look. Since the establishment of the COI, please take a look as to what has happened. First of all, the media exposed that in August 2018, the MTRCL and the government have been giving us incorrect reports. The government officers found that for the East-West platform, in relation to the concrete work, the MTR used drawings not having been vetted by the government departments. The Director of Highways said that there has been major changes. According to the latest drawings, it is estimated that 2,000 fewer couplers would have been used. And then there are 20 bays, and in fact, some of them have been constructed on the basis of unapproved drawings. So the MTRCL has been submitting incorrect or false reports to the government. So it is a matter of honesty. It is a matter of forgery. But then, this is not the only incident of forgery. There are other scandals. And then come the second one. That is the settlement. According to the reports, it is said that for To Kwa Wan station, internal consultants' report showed that in 2016, when excavation was carried out, 23 buildings had their settlement exceeding the preset trigger levels, and in fact the highest was recorded at 62.9 mm, 30% above the trigger level. But MTRCL didn't instruct the contractor to suspend work, which it should have done so according to the requirements. Reinforcement or mitigation was not carried out as well, and there was no notification given to those who have been affected. So what is the MTRCL thinking? It is beyond my imagination. As Claudia MO has said a moment ago, the settlement would affect residential buildings. Their lives, their properties would be affected because they live there. It is something very important. How come that you haven't notified the residents? In fact, they have been living in fear for a long time, and it is most irresponsible. Next, we have the alteration of the drawings. It has been found that it was much more serious than we thought. In fact, Leighton has removed the reinforcement concrete for 77 diaphragm walls without telling the MTRCL. 2 years later, it was found out, and then indirectly it was mitigated by thinning the wall so as to mitigate the problem. Well, I think it's a matter of the contractor doing the work on his own, doing it in his own way. So you can see that the contractor is totally out of control. What angers me most is that recently, for the 3-member expert advisor panel composed of former senior government officials, they examined the information, and the EA panel suggested that we should open up the concrete so as to find out about the extent of the problem, the seriousness of the problem. So the EA panel, the expert advisor panel, has come up with this recommendation, and yet the MTRCL has responded in this way. That is, they just try to have a few spot checks so as to examine the concrete.
At the end, the expert advisor team had to issue an interim report which showed that the quantity checked was far lower than the audit standard, and the MTRC was requested to review the examination plan. I've asked the secretary to review the concrete, or to take down the concrete wall. You have been saying that you would conduct a loading test which would reveal the loading capability of the bars. So the steel bars might still be holding up, but would they hold up for 120 years? According to the design, the shelf life is 120 years. The government has been procrastinating, and the EAT decided that they had to take down the walls to examine the steel bars. And you came up with a half-hearted examination plan, and the EAT had to issue an interim report criticizing the government. Mr. Frank Chan, as a director of the MTR Corporation, how could you allow the MTRC to come up with such a lackluster report? The MTRC's reputation has been going downwards. Like the MTRC's works, they are just plunging lower and deeper and deeper. The governance of the MTR Corporation has plummeted. They fail to monitor the works quality nor their contractors, and instead they serve to conceal the facts. They misled the government as well as LegCo. So what should we do to a company like this? Some people say that the MTR Corporation is getting too huge and it's hard to do anything about their dominance. So our job in hand is to find out the extent of the problem and who is to be blamed. If we do not dig out the facts and understand the issue, how can we learn our lesson? President, for the Commission of Inquiry chaired by Mr. Michael Hartman certainly has a role to play. But as I said in my opening address, the scope of work or the terms of reference is too narrow, and LegCo has the constitutional responsibility to investigate matters of major public interest. We cannot dodge our duties and we should do what we should. We cannot defer to a judge or a commission of inquiry. As proxies of the public, while many people would ask us why Hong Kong is facing such a demise and why are we facing a demise of the MTRC, we must find out the cause before we can consider how we can reform the MTRC, or else the issue would be like the steel bars with no couplers. They would be concealed and the truth would only be unearthed after 20 or 30 years. We must hold ourselves accountable to the public and our future generation, and we must thoroughly investigate the Sha Tin to Central Link scandals so that the public would know the truth. And so I speak and I urge fellow members to support my motion. Thank you.
Secretary for Transport and Housing. Thank you, President. President, the Sha Tin Central Link is a territorial strategic railway project, and since it involved the construction of various underground stations and tunnel sections, during the construction stage, it is inevitable that the works will cause impact to the surroundings. This impact may include causing settlements to buildings, bridges, underground utilities on roads in the vicinity of the work site. And to monitor possible settlement caused by the works at the design stage, MTRCL need to carry assessment and establish a stringent monitoring mechanism where it would install monitoring points at suitable locations and conduct regular monitoring. Through the monitoring data, the MTR could understand the impact brought by the works to the ambient environment and take appropriate actions to contain the impacts within a controllable and safe range. And on the foundation and excavation works before they took place, we have set up a 3-level tier activation mechanism. When the settlement reached a preset trigger level, the MTRs would need to take predetermined action. After the commencement of the works, where the take hold of the soil parameters and the groundwater levels and excavation sequence and condition of structures, the MTR could estimate acceptable potential settlement levels of the affected structures and consult the Buildings Department and the Highways Department. The MTR pointed out that the settlement levels usually set at more conservative levels, so that progressive and continuous monitoring works can be done and the predetermined mitigation measures can be adopted. Thus, under the 3-tier activation mechanism, the highest preset trigger level is definitely not a watershed. Even if the settlement of some structures exceeded highest preset trigger level due to the railworks nearby, it does not mean the structural safety problem will appear. It is important that the MTRCL shall monitor the settlement of the relevant structures and the facilities in a frequent and continuous manner during the implementation works, and upon consulting relevant departments, the MTRCL would carry out mitigation measures to ensure the structural safety of the facilities. The government requests the MTRCL to consolidate the settlement data of affected buildings and to report to BD and Highway D in a regular manner. The engineering safety has always a top priority, and works on site shall be suspended if imminent danger is identified to safeguard the safety of the public, the construction personnel on site, and the facilities nearby. The Chokawan station of the Sha Tin Central Link, which is Ms. Mo's concern, has commenced work, completed its work as November 2016, according to MTRCL records. Some of the monitoring points had their sediment readings exceeded preset trigger levels during the construction period. The MTRCL had taken relevant measures in accordance with their three-tier mechanism, which include increasing the monitoring points, inspecting the conditions of buildings by registered structural engineer, and grouting to reinforce the underground stratum. According to MTRCL assessment, the tilting of the buildings would get to the tier 3 levels. The tilting of the buildings is still within range of the total limit stimulated in the APRC and RGE's practice notes of BD, which is, and for the lockdown at the monitoring points of the lockdown road and stuff, which exceeded on January 2016, the relevant pavement that had already been repaved and opened for public. And for underground facilities, the MTRCL had already contacted the Countex company to conduct an inspection to ensure the structural and the normal functioning of the town gas pipes. And the MTRC had already arranged structural engineers to conduct a building inspection of the 23 buildings affected by settlement. The results have shown that all 23 buildings have been certified as structurally safe. And currently, the structures affected by New Tok Kwan Station, including buildings, public facilities, and the accumulated settlement degree and monitoring points have not exceeded existing or refreshed trigger levels. According to MTRCL monitoring data, the settlement situation near the Coco Wan work site had already stabilized, and MTRCL will continue to monitor these monitoring points. And the Transport Housing Bureau has established the expert advice team on August 15, made up of 3 veteran or retired officials on SCL project to comprehensively review the project management system of MTRCL and propose extra management and monitoring measures when taking forward the SCL project. In response to public concern, the expert advisor team would also inspect the settlement matters on the SCL. The SCL project has been entrusted under the Railway Ordinance Cap 519. Any substantial or structural damage of buildings caused by the SCL construction works can make a written claim to the Transport and Housing Secretary in accordance to the Railway Ordinance. The relevant written claims will be passed on to the Lands Department to handle in accordance with the ordinance. On the other hand, when the MTRCL here received reports of cracks in the buildings, the MTRCL engineering team will conduct site inspection with the contractor, for example, a visual inspection, taking photographs to double-check the monitoring points records, as well as to going back to the survey records conducted on the unit before the start of the works to confirm that whether these cracks only appear upon the commencement of the SCL project. These cases will then be passed on to the independent third-party claims adjuster for investigation and follow-up. The MTRCL had already amended relevant procedures. After the claim adjuster concluded investigation, they would directly send a report to the claimant, while a copy to be sent to the MTRCL, and the MTRCL will not prevent the report prior to the release. As I understand, the MTRCL is preparing for a plan setting aside the legal liability, adopting a practical approach to offer financial assistance to homeowners near the Tok Kwan Station to repair the affected concretes. The MTRCL was to streamline the procedures and to launch the scheme as soon as possible. As for the level of settlement exceeded the trigger along SCL, the MTRCL had released the most recent settlement monitoring data on August 30th. And at the exhibition station working site of the SCL, in the view of the level of settlement exceeded the preset start work levels, the MTRCL halt the relevant excavation work on August the 10th, as to conduct a careful analysis on the impact of the settlement cost to the nearby structures, and submitted the suggestion and the rationale of resuming the excavation work. The relevant departments, in confirming that the public will not be impacted, agree to the proposal submitted by MTRCL on worker resumption and modification of trigger levels. The Highways Department and the Utilities Department will review existing arrangement with MTRCL and adopt the suggestions by the expert advisor team from the THB to formulate a notification mechanism for the SCL project. On September 20th, the government will announce a monitoring and notification mechanism in relation to the impact of SCL work to nearby structures and public facilities. And under the notification mechanism, when the level settlement exceeded the preset trigger levels, the MTRCL will need to suspend the relevant works, and the departments shall then inspect the affected buildings and the facilities and issue a press releases. And the MTRCL will update their pre-work preset trigger levels and work resumption arrangements. The EAT formed by the THB have submitted a first interim report on 19th of October, which is made public on 24th of October. The EAT claims that it was take to conduct auditing of the certain projects in the SCL to evaluate effectiveness of the monitoring and control system. As for the steel works of the diaphragm walls and platform slab construction in the Hon LAM station extension of the SCL by the MTRCL, the Executive Executing Council on July 10th, in accordance with the COI Ordinance, appointed a committee on inquiry, which appointed Mr. Michael Hartman, former non-permanent judge of the Court of Final Appeal, as the chairman. The COI will investigate the facts and the circumstances and to review the project management and monitoring system MTRCL, as well as the government's monitoring and regulations mechanism, and propose suitable measures to ensure the work's quality and public safety. Besides the COI, the police also commenced investigation, and the Buildings Department has already activated investigation within the ambit of building ordinance to verify whether there are any non-compliance. On the other hand, the Development Bureau, as per the Contractors Management Handbook, had taken enforcement action on the contractors of the SCL works on the works quality issue of the Hon LAM station, Antokwan station, and exhibition station on 8th of October. And for the work quality issues of Hon LAM station, the Leighton Asia chief main contractor have suspended qualification for the period of 12 months, effective from 8th of October 2018. The government reserved the right to take further enforcement action if we're able to obtain more information in relation to the work quality problems of the Hon LAM extension issues. The Development Bureau will review the circumstances. If necessary, they will suggest and take further regulatory action to enhance the supervision of the MTRCL's work in implementing the SCR projects. The Roads Highways Department has already taken strengthened measures, including requesting MTRCL to provide the non-conformance report which is provided by MTRCL to the contractors, as well as a report of any improvement and deterioration in work quality, as well as taking suitable policies to strengthen the monitoring and verification consultants on the site inspections, as well as sending staff for independent surprise inspection, and request the MTRCL to step up its internal and the notification mechanism between the government, and as well enhance the work supervision system. The Buildings Department will continue to supervise the structural safety of the platform slab of the Hon LAM station extension project, including conducting weekly on-site visits. The THB and the expert advice team now requests the MTRCL to formulate a comprehensive and holistic strategy to confirm the conditions of the Hong Kong extension platform slab and the structural safety. The strategy include verify and to review all the construction records and to dig up some part of the platform slab and as the connection with the platform slab and the diaphragm wall, as well conduct non-destructive testing and loading tests. And for the submission by MTRC on 15th October for the on the first stage report to verify the Hong Kong extension northeast link platform slab and the diaphragm wall, the actual building conditions. The government has strictly reviewed the report and proposals to MTRCL. The AAT is of the view in the first interim report point out that MTRCL first stage report is of a narrow scope and not able to meet the criteria of a comprehensive assessment. For example, it only covered some of the platform slab of the east-west link, but that include the north-south link platform slab and diaphragm walls, and suggests the number of excavation and location have not been thoroughly considered in statistical angle and failed to report of any reportedly inappropriate situations. For example, the honeycombing of concrete and gaps, and the government requests MTRCL to submit a holistic strategy in the middle of this month with covering the Hong Kong station extension, of which the entire building structure or the actual construction details. And on the 19th of October, there's a report on the contractor of the diaphragm wall have unit without authorization removed the steel bars of 77 diaphragm walls at the top level. According to the MTRCL's data, the Leighton on July of 2013 for the convenience of steel forming and pouring concrete, and suggested the revision of the steel bar design, which were implemented. As of January 2015, the MTRCL had providing the building department on the completion details of the diaphragm walls, which the BD had found that the finished drawings and noticed that inconsistent of the accepted drawings on the diaphragm walls between the east-west link on this rebar structure details, and first refused to accept the certificate of completion, and on May of 2015 notified the Highways Department for follow-up and urged the MTRCL submit the excellent report and remedial measures. On July of 2015, the MTRCL submitted the incident report, and on January 16, report had provided the building department on the design remedial solution, confirmed that the revised diaphragm top layer rebars would meet the structural safety requirements. The design remedial message have accepted on March 2016 by Building Department, and also the report which point out that the further revision by MTRCL and Leighton on the top end of the diaphragm wall, this is actually been the facts that be ascertained by the COI, which we shall leave that to the COI to follow up. As for the 19th of October report about the Hong Kong Station and the Hong Kong Coliseum at the Metropolis Hotel of settlement exceeding preset levels on December 2014, the MTRCL will continue frequent and continuous settlement monitoring on the relevant structures and facilities, and adopting appropriate action and mitigation measures to control the impact at the control and salvage ensure structural safety, and the relevant settlement data has shown stabilization. Chairman, the government attaches great importance on the settlement of the nearby structures of construction works. As for the structural safety of the Hong Kong Station, like we said before, the government had adopted the relevant measures and to control the settlement of buildings, public facilities of the settlement within a safe and controllable range to ensure public safety. As for the non-compliance works and the change of drawings of the Hong Kong extension, the government has already, as accordance with the COI ordinance, to set up a COI with legal authorities, in fact, independent and holistic investigation. The COI opening hearings are all public, and the relevant information will be disclosed to the public. There's no room for compromise for railway safety. We'll consider the outcome and the suggestion for the COI and the proposals of the EAT to further enhance the supervision of this MTRCL for the more effective implementation of the MTRCL. The government is of the view that there's no need for LegCo to invoke this PMB ordinance to set up a select committee, and the government has come to be frank and clean on the settlement incident, including releasing the settlement data, and has set up a monitoring and notification mechanism to enhance transparency. The AET is supposed to conduct auditing on certain areas of the SCL project to evaluate effectiveness of the monitoring and the control system. As for the non-compliance work and a change of drawings of the Hon LAM extension, and while the COS conducted a hearing together with the investigation by law enforcement agencies, invoking the PMB ordinance to set a select committee to investigate it is only duplicating their effort and will also inevitably delay the progress of the COS. So it's not necessary. President, I still submit, I appeal to members to veto this motion.
Mr. Gary Fan, I speak in support of the motions proposed by Ms. Claudia MO and Mr. LAM Cheuk-ting, and that is that this Council appoint a select committee according to the Powers and Privileges Ordinance in order to look into the Pt1 Station and Exhibition Centre Station of Sha Tin to Central Link. In this joint debate, I'm sure many pro-establishment camp members would, as Mr. Frank Chang was saying, that the administration has already set up an independent commission to inquire into the matter. He spoke for 20 minutes to say that if the Legislative Council will invoke the Powers and Privileges Ordinance to investigate, this will be duplication. I can almost guarantee that Ms. Ann Chang, who is going to speak, will follow very closely to the Secretary's speech. President, I'm here to explain very clearly about this select committee that we propose to be set up. Why? This select committee will be able to have greater depth and width than the Commission of Inquiry or COI set up by government, so that we can have a deep understanding of the issue, and then you will be able to vote on the motion on the 24th of last month, meaning that it was last Wednesday. The expert advisors team proposed 9 preliminary recommendations to the Secretary. These 3 expert advisors were former experienced civil servants. They went on site visits, they read papers, and they also met with relevant government departments. And now they have come up with a very detailed set of methodology in order to look into the Hon LAM station, including the structure, the records, and also they dug open the structure, and they also conducted non-destructive tests. The administration emphasized that they would do loading tests, but then the EA team did more. There were 4 recommendations which had to do with the settlement-related issues. The EA team, as the Secretary was saying, they would seek out certain sensitive sites of the SCL project in order to do verification. But we have had this incident for 5 months already, Secretary, a whole 5 months. The THB and the MTRCL are only filing interim reports now. I think you are moving very slowly. You are not keeping abreast of the situation, and you are not doing enough. On the other hand, the COI held its 8th hearing yesterday. And let us look at what happened at the hearing. And indeed, it was quite alarming. Mr. Jason Poon, the Director of China Technology, said yesterday that 30,000 couplers were problematic, and 5% of the couplers, meaning involving 1,300 steel bars, they were cut. Secretary, you remember there was the news saying that there were 200, 500 rebars that were cut, and that alarmed the public. But we are now talking about 1,300. Mr. Jason Poon even said that last year he entered into a confidentiality agreement with Leighton, and he, under request, deleted 2 photos and a clip on his phone, and he should also destroy all the photos in the cloud, and also he should reformat the entire computer, and so nothing could be found. Therefore, from this SCL scandal, you can see that Leighton and China Technology are saying different things. Even on the very first day of the hearing, both were already disputing and they had their own stance. But as now, we know that the biggest responsibility was because the MTRCL and the SAR government, who did not do enough. The MTRCL did not do enough monitoring. The notification system was problematic. And even the frontline supervisors, they were sloppy in their work. And also when they could see problems, they did not report. They paid no heed to the safety of workers and commuters, and they did not do their work well. That is why we're so angry with MTRCL. At the same time, it shows that the THB and the Highways Department did not do a good monitoring job. And that is why in this SCL scandal, the administration cannot say it can wash its hand of it. The COI will only investigate into the Hong LAM Station extension and only the slab work at platforms and also the diaphragm walls. But there are 10 stations along SCL, and the COL is only looking into Hong LAM Station extension. In other words, it will not look beyond the Hong LAM Station extension project. And let us look at the last 5 months. Signs were telling us that there are so many problems with SCL, and we are only seeing the tip of the iceberg. And it should not, of course, stop with Hong LAM Station. Even To Kwa Wan Station, Exhibition Center Station are definitely involved, and I'm sure other project problems will surface. On the 2nd of June 2018, this was exposed in the newspapers. What I was doing, together with Neo-Democrats, I went to the Wan Chai police station to file a report asking the police to investigate into deception and false statements that were being exposed. Now, what did the government do? You reacted slowly. The Highways Department waited until the 15th of June, meaning 2 weeks after the disclosure of the event, that now they were aware that there was possibly deception, and so they also reported to the police. And what did you do, Secretary? On the 20th of June, you told members that with regard to the quality of works at SCL, when you answered our question, you actually dared to say that you got to know all that because of news reports. And you found it most regrettable that the MTRCL did not report that to you. And you just said within your 20 minutes, you said that you did your monitoring, you placed emphasis on it, and you would follow up actively. But no, that is not what you did. You actually were trying to pass the buck. You did not come clean. You were not honest. On the 23rd of July, there was leakage in the tunnel and also cutting short of rebars at Hong LAM Station. Again, together with Neo-Democrats and professionals, we held a press conference to urge the administration to break open the concrete, to inspect 5% of couplers in every bay in order to understand the ratio of irregularity and to identify suitable remedies to make sure that Hong LAM Station is safe. Again, you reacted slowly. It was even more exaggerated this time. You waited 2 months, 60 days, until the 3rd of October before you reported that in order to respond to aspirations in society, you admitted that you would do something. You would ask for concrete to be broken open at Hong LAM Station for testing. Therefore, on the 2nd of June, on the 23rd of July, if you look at these 2 dates, you would know that relying on the administration and the MTRCL to monitor the project, that would definitely be inadequate. Even if we have the COI, still it is inadequate. Therefore, the LegCo should invoke our Powers and Privileges Ordinance to do further investigation, to identify whether there was deliberate refusal to disclose information when MTRCL high-ranking people knew about the problem, and why that was the case, why this was habitually done. You have to identify the cause before you could prevent a recurrence in future. This is about the governance of MTRCL, which is hugely problematic, and of course there are many loopholes in your monitoring work as the administration. Therefore, Mr. Frank Chan, the MTRCL management, part of that has left in order to mend the fold when the sheep is gone, but still this is not adequate. It doesn't mean that there would be the stamina required in order to tackle systemic flaws. We cannot prevent the recurrence of similar incidents if we have similar infrastructural projects in future. This has to do with the internal management structure of the SCL, and this is really a structural management problem. The Highways Department farmed out the work to a consultant, and whether the consultant sent their staff to monitor progress at Hong Kong Station on a regular basis? Did they look for quality? When the consultant found that there were problems with the project, did they notify the Highways Department? Mr. Secretary, even at this very moment, we know nothing about that. The COI set up by government, would it look into the internal management structure for SCL? Would it review it? We do not know. We have doubts. That is why we'd like to invoke the PMP Ordinance to set up a select committee to do further investigation. If these motions are passed, select committees comprising legislators would certainly look deeply into the settlement of buildings around To Kwa Wan Station. And the final aim of the select committee will be to check all 10 stations of SCL and also related tunnel and viaduct works. And we'll look into all that, of course. And the select committee will certainly look at the tendering process for SCL to see whether that was done properly. Because the TH Bureau never told us the relationship between the administration and Leighton. And as the project owner, you did not tell us how the administration could try to recover cost from Leighton. Many media organizations asked the question, but the administration never gave a clear answer. The COI appointed by government would not go in that direction either. Therefore, Democrats would like to set up this select committee in order to look into whether the board of directors of MTRCL could legally, contractually, effectively monitor the project and also to review the system and revamp it. If we have the select committee, we will conduct hearings. We will see whether there is good governance, whether there is good value for money, and we will also look into the internal management structure for SCL. This is different from the COI and also criminal investigation by the police. There will be no duplication between the three parts. It will be very clearly delineated. There will be no duplication. The secretary just said that this would be superfluous, but that will not be the case. We hope that the select committee will do a more comprehensive job, and we will make better recommendations so we can prevent SCL scandals from occurring. We represent the people. We are legislators. Statutorily, we can exercise our investigation power. So we get to the bottom of this SCL scandal. There is only one aim: to prevent recurrence of such scandals when we have similar transport infrastructure projects in future. So we give a clear account to the public. I hope the loyalists will think deep about this, particularly those from NT East and Kowloon West, Ms. Ann Chang, Ms. Starry Lee, Mr. Vincent Chang. They went to To Kwa Wan. They looked at settlement of buildings. They said they took that very seriously, but when it comes to voting, when it comes to discharging our duties as legislators and exercising our investigation powers to look into the cause of SCL, please do not go away. Please do not vote against the motions. Please help the public do something good. This is our duty. Therefore, I support the setting up of a select committee to look into the SCL scandal.
Dr. Ann Chang. President, Gary Fan was right. Legislators are supposed to get work done. I'd like to address Ms. Claudia Mo's motion on the subsidence at the 20-odd buildings near the To Kwa Wan station. I was shocked when I learned about the news. Why didn't we know about it? Why were we not in the know? What about the district council? Even the DC did not know about it. They were infuriated as well. Kowloon City District councillors said that in 2016 and 17, they had meetings with the MTR Corporation and the Highways Department. They had a meeting in July 2017. They also had a meeting in 2018. During those meetings, apparently everything was fine and there were no issues. But it was likely that at that time subsidence already occurred. So why wasn't the district council informed at that time? Was it possible that the attending officials did not know about it? It was unfathomable. I urge the government if the Highways Department detect any issues with the district works, they must inform the district council. That way the district councillors would know what happened. You should not catch them by surprise. I think the district councillors in and around To Kwa Wan were all very angry. As a pro-establishment member, I would not just blindly criticize the government, for example, for concealment or for deceiving the public, or that you are deliberating causing subsidence. That is not my style. Instead, I would think from the perspective of the public. If I'm a resident, if this area, and if my building is one of the sites of subsidence, then I would try to find out whether the gas pipes will explode because of the subsidence. And I would also think about building safety. Would the whole building just sink? You know, I would be concerned. As lawmakers, I think we should immediately identify their concerns, and we should try to find answers. So I would do the liaison and ask questions, and I received answers one by one. Town guest said there's nothing to worry about. they looked at the 3 relevant pipes and the readings were normal. For the pipes concerned, they were already replaced by town gas, and now everything is normal. And they have replaced the pipes with ones that are more ductile, and there is no cause for concern. The buildings department also sent officers to inspect the safety of these buildings, and they did not detect any structural safety issue. The MTR Corporation said the surrounding works were completed, so the subsidence level of the buildings have stabilized. In other words, there would not be any further subsidence. So the upon testing, the degree of inclination is normal. Some people, or the extent of tilting has stabilized. Even though the current situation is normal, some people might still worry about the future. The MTRC produced some documents from a notary, and they said that the notary would perform inspections, and the results from the notary show that everything had nothing had anything to do with the MTRC. The works were ongoing, but yet they said the MTRC were not culpable. Well, I did not, let's say I didn't trust all that. I made visits with the relevant engineers. If there's any subsidence or cracks detected at the buildings involved, or whether there are any safety issues to do with the MTRC, I brought engineers to the areas. We took photos. We also visited some apartments. We even took photos of cracks. We found that a lot of the cracks were due to issues with the concrete. I communicated with the MTRC. The concrete was fine before the SEL work started, but after the SEL work started, there were issues with the concrete. Well, if you say that it had nothing to do with you, I'm not convinced. I believe there is a relationship or connection between the both. The incident already occurred, so now I can only hope that the MTRC would shoulder its social responsibility like any major enterprise should. In the past, I received complaints from many residents that due to the piling works nearby, there was some concrete spalling. So of course, you cannot say that the piling works had nothing to do with this spalling concrete. We also told the construction companies and developers about them. They immediately sent someone to fix the issues. So at least the residents could be reassured. As a lawmaker, my only priority is to help the residents. I would not go around every day telling residents that their buildings are about to collapse. Now they are unable to sell off their units or rent them out. So are you satisfied? Are you happy about it? A lot of residents are suffering. So a lot of them would hope that the MTLC would buy their flats because they are about to collapse, but that wasn't the case. Safety reports were published, and some residents are still skeptical. We talked to the MTLC, and we asked it for each building and each flat. If the residents are concerned about structural safety, the MTLC should issue documents to prove building safety. Dr. N. Chang. The mission is on whether or not an investigation would be launched. This is not about concrete spalling or building safety. Please come back to the topic.
就係港鐵亦都應該咧真。
Like what I said, if some residents are really concerned, that cracks are showing up in their flat due to MTR works, the MTRC should help with the remedial works. In the future, I hope they would communicate more with the Highways Department and District Councils so that everyone would know more about the situation. I think you really have to open up. President, the residents want to know what the remedial works are or what the answers are, instead of having to summon all the officials as Ms. Claudia MO suggested, and we are going to interrogate them one by one. Instead, To Kwa Wan residents hope that the Sha Tin to Central Link is commissioned as soon as possible because they have suffered transportation problems for a very long time. So this motion moved under the LegCo PMP ordinance would not help the residents. If you really want to help the residents, you have to understand their plight and give and offer answers to their concerns, and that is to ensure that their buildings are safe. For residents who still have worries, please contact the An Chang office or the DAB district councillors. We will certainly follow up. I object to Ms. Claudia MO's motion. Thank you.
Mr. Ken Lau. President, now debating Mr. LAM Cheuk-ting and Ms. Claudia MO's motion to invoke the PMP, and for the LegCo to appoint a select committee to inquire of these land subsidence issue near the SCL To Kwa Wan station, as well to investigate on the non-compliant works ended, and as well as substandard construction works, which was the part of Hong Kong. And for the past 5 months, MTRC Health has been exposed led to steel rebar cuttings and subsidence issue, and were alleged and all major signaling faults, which cast skepticism on the reliability of MTR service, which made the public frustrated and worried. The MTR covered a huge part of Hong Kong. When developed a new town, the government claims that the railways are the backbone of transport, whether you live in the island or Kowloon or New Territories. you very much would like to take the MTR every day. And as you can see that there will only be growing reliance on the MTR, so the efficiency and safety will be of the highest concern. To achieve highly efficient and safety, the work quality will be paramount. And since the SCL scandal broke at the end of May, the LegCo had conducted special meetings on multiple occasions, which the government and MTR and the China Technology have sent reps to the meeting. And the Subcommittee related to railways have convened a meeting on 6th of July on the SCL Pt1 and Home Station, and 13th July to discuss the substandard steel works on the Hon LAM extension. On 31st of August to talk about the subsidence of buildings nearby the SCL construction works, and the Transport also discussed the Hon LAM station extension of the diaphragm wall construction issues and the platform slab of a substandard steelworks. For this major mishaps, the government has swiftly took decisive action. And Caroline, Chief Executive, on July 10th, appointed a committee of inquiry to appointed Mr. Michael Hartman, former non-permanent judge of the Court of Final Appeal, and Mr. Hansford, the professor of criminal knowledge, to conduct an objective, independent inquest into the Hon LAM extension works. The COI had already convened on 12th of October and expect to finish testimonial by the end of July, December, and the report will then be compiled to be submitted to the Chief Executive. And the government also appointed 3 experienced public former officials to form an expert advisory team to help to review the management of the SCL construction. The SCL scandal exposed the loopholes of the supervision of major construction projects. The MTR had fallen short, and Leighton have yet to appear on LegCo, and the government could have done nothing. Thus, I understand why Ms. Claudia MO and Mr. Lam in moving this motion to seek the truth. And for the public who take the MTR every day, in order to find out the cost of sub-quality work MTR, which of the departments should be held accountable, that's when we should meet public. And now the COI had already commenced the hearing, and the government-appointed EAT had already submitted interim report. I believe the existing mechanism can compel the MTR and the main subcontractor to submit more evidence, and also to get to the truth as well, to dig up the cost of lack of supervision. Some may retort that the COI terms of reference are limited to the Hon LAM extension, and for the Pt1 and other station is not covered. My view is that the SCL project will be exposed by the media while the steel bars suspect being cut short, and water leakage and subsidence and so on. And today with the COI hearing, new information continue to be disclosed, why don't we wait for a little bit to wait for the conclusion of the COI for deciding whether we need to appoint a select committee to investigate? If before the COI come to any conclusion, at the same time appoint a select committee, it's probably not a prudent use of resource and the lawmakers' time. I inclined to wait for the results of the COI, and depends on whether any mystery to be uncleared to consider whether to invoke the PNP. At this stage, I'm not able to support Ms. Mo and Mr. Lam's motion. I still submit.
Mrs. Regina Ip, President, I paid close attention to the 2 movers who were seeking to invoke the ordinance, and also the response of Mr. Frank Chan. The SCL is a mammoth railway project in recent years. It measures 17 kilometers with 10 stations, many districts. There is the South-North corridor and the East-West corridor, and tens of thousands of people are waiting in earnest for its completion. It is wholly subsidized by the government, and after KCRC is merged by MTRC, it is now handled by the MTRCL, and it is going to cost $96.163 billion. Now works have been suspended, and we are very disappointed. We have heard the explanation of the Secretary, but we are still hugely dissatisfied. First of all, the cutting of steel bars. This was exposed by a contractor before you knew about it, and now the administration had to appoint a COI. Every day, we hear accusations by the main contractor and the subcontractor. And also, we have heard explanation about settlement at other stations. Again, we are dissatisfied. First, the Secretary said that the trigger values were set at a conservative level and it would not reach the safety watershed, and he was trying to reassure us even if residents are alarmed. And also the departure from building plans when diaphragm walls were built. If I heard you correctly, you said that the buildings department allowed them to change the plans, and then after 2016, the plans were revised, and yet they still did not follow the plans, and it was exposed only recently. So whether it be Hong Kong Station or other stations along SCL where there was settlement, you are giving people the impression that the MTRCL has not done a good monitoring job with its contractors and the administration has not monitored the MTRCL effectively. That is why you have appointed a statutory COI, and the Secretary reported to us that you also engaged retired government engineers in order to oversee the SCL works. Members here are very angry. They are reflecting the anger and disappointment of the public, and that is understood. But still, I cannot support the two motions in order to invoke the Powers and Privileges Ordinance because, as you know, President, the Legislative Council has supported the setting up of select committees with statutory powers in order to investigate into matters of public concern. In the past, the majority of members supported three such investigations. One, the short pile issue. Two, Mr. Leung Chin-man. He took up a business sector job and he was expected of receiving deferred rewards. And also 10 years ago, the Lehman Brothers incident. If there was a need, we should investigate. And as members pointed out, the Legislative Council does have the function of monitoring the executive. But then, with regard to departure from building plans and also impact on safety, we need people with the expertise. It would be much better than the dozens of us joining a select committee. I believe professionals and experts' input would allow the investigation to be more efficient and accurate. And President, if you say we set up a select committee, I think we are already in the second year of our 4-year term. And the select committee will kick off its work only next year, even if it is set up. And I'm sure the MTRCL will engage senior counsel to defend it. Leighton and its contractors will also engage barristers to represent them. And in the end, the SC will get more business, and LegCo will be turned into a court where there will be adversarial arguments, and sometimes they might even supply information in camera. We are quite a big organization. We are 70 of us, and maybe 50 would like to join the select committee to conduct public hearings. And I think the effectiveness and efficiency cannot be compared to expert groups made up of engineers. Therefore, temporarily and resource-wise, Mr. President, we just cannot afford to conduct any large-scale investigation. Even if we are very much dissatisfied with the performance of the administration and the MTRCL, I think the most effective way to do it is to wait for the COI to complete its investigation. And also, well, as the Secretary said, the administration has already appointed an expert advisors team, and if I have heard you correctly, Mr. Raymond, so they have filed an interim report. When you respond in this debate, let us know when the final report will be available. In other words, the EA team's report on settlement, and when can you give an account to LegCo so we have a chance to question these experts about their assessment of safety at the different stations along SCL. I believe independent expert investigation will be much more efficient than LegCo investigation. Well, we can make the public feel better if we have the investigation, but then we will not be as efficient. Therefore, the NPP will not support the two motions that will be moved to invoke the powers and privileges ordinance.
Dr. Lau Wai Kwok, President. The motion about the request of Ms. Claudia MO and Mr. LAM Cheuk-ting to appoint a select committee to conduct the relevant investigations. Ms. Claudia MO requested inquiring into the incident of serious land subsidence of buildings near the construction site of To Kwan Station of the SCL and whether the incident involved ineffective monitoring by the SCL government and the MTL Corporation and their deliberate concealment of the land subsidence. For Mr. LAM Cheuk-ting, the motion is to inquire into matters relating to the MTRC's alleged concealment of the substandard construction works and alterations to the construction drawings of the SCL, alleged failure to suspend the construction works and notify the public when the settlement of some monitoring points is found to have exceeded the preset trigger levels, and subsequent proposal of relaxing the preset trigger levels for temporary suspension of works of the monitoring points near the construction site of the exhibition center station. Both motions have to do with the Sha Tin to Central link works. I find it appropriate for the President to decide on a joint debate. However, I feel that Ms. Claudia MO's and Ms. LAM Cheuk-ting's motions are not worth supporting at this stage. This is the fourth time members are invoking the LegCo PMP ordinance to investigate the Sha Tin to Central link. There are 10 stations along the SCL spanning Hong Kong Island, Kowloon, and the New Territories. No one can guarantee whether new problems would surface after today, and by that time, other members might move motions under the PMP ordinance. If that's the case, LegCo will continue to dwell on the MTL Corporation or one of the infrastructure projects. This is not in the best interest of the public. The relevant issues at Hong Lam Station of the SCL have to do with public safety, and on the 12th of June, the Chief Executive, Mrs. Carrie Lam, decided to appoint a commission of inquiry under the COI ordinance, and by July, the Chief Executive in Council formally appointed the COI into the diaphragm wall and platform slab construction works at the Hong Lam Station extension under the Sha Tin to Central link project, as well as other works of public interest. The COI would also come up with recommendations to facilitate public safety and ensure the quality of works. And an expert advice team was also formed with the former heads of departments to come up with suggestions. different legislators unanimously supported the decision to appoint a COI because the COI carries great credibility. First of all, the COI was appointed under the COI Ordinance, and the inquiries carry has the statutory power to summon different persons, so there is actual power. And the former non-permanent judge of the CFA, Michael Hartman, was appointed chairman and member, while Mr. Peter George Hansford of the University College London was appointed as the commissioner. In 2014, a COI was appointed to examine the project management mechanism and cost management measures adopted by the MTRC for the Express Rail link. Mr. Hartman and Professor Hansford were the chairman and commissioner, respectively. They were both very familiar with the use of service concession in Hong Kong. The COI was appointed due to the works issues at Hong Kong Station, but the terms of reference include the monitoring regime, quality assurance regime, works and related procedures, notification mechanism, internal communication mechanism between stakeholders, as well as all relevant systems, processes, etc., and whether they are sound. And the government's monitoring mechanism would also be addressed. Recommendations would be formed to ensure the quality of works. The goal is to avoid repeats of the same incidents in the future. President, from the date of appointment or within a time frame agreed by the CE in Council, the COI will submit a report to the CE in Council. After months of preparation, the inquiry started on the 22nd of October, and on the first day of hearing, Ian Pennicott, SC, the counsel for the COI, pointed out in his opening address that the COI has been monitoring media reports, and he said that some media outlets used certain materials relating to the hearing, including emails and pictures. He reminded the hearing parties that hearings are they form judicial procedures. Disclosure of materials to third parties constitute contempt of the court. The COI would come up with conclusions and recommendations after taking in the evidence, and they would not consider untrue reports. The COI has been objective and impartial, and they would be able to come up with objective assessments. The COI should be given space and time to complete the investigation within the deadline and form constructive recommendations. And follow-up could be conducted upon publication of the COI receipt or report. For the government and MTR Corporation, which are the project managers of SCL, the investigation should not be interfered with, and if there are any illegal acts, cases should be referred to the enforcement agencies. Land subsidence can be caused by artificial or natural factors. If excavation is involved, the subsidence must be monitored. If the settlement readings exceed a trigger level, it might not mean that it's unsafe, but nonetheless, it should be monitored. Over the years, there has been stringent monitoring on settlement of works and buildings, and underground facilities, buildings, etc. are monitored, and the government and public utilities have roles to play in this. For the SCL works, the settlement monitoring mechanism follows the usual practice. No relevant body has detected any irregularities. As for the excessive settlement reading at To Kwa Wan Station, I understood from the Director of Buildings that 23 buildings near the To Kwa Wan Station were examined and they were found to be safe. The Director promised that they will continue to monitor the situation, and I found this a responsible approach. For owners of who are concerned, a notary has been appointed and reports will be shared with the owners directly. I also touched base with town gas. They examined the pipes near the site and the results were safe. The materials and designs, the materials adopted for the types are relatively ductile. As for the relevant utilities and roads, they are being monitored by relevant bodies. The exhibition center station, which saw the work stopped for 1.5 months due to excessive settlement readings, well, the government had a scientific system for monitoring settlement. Hong Kong had not seen any safety issues due to settlement to buildings. The Water Supplies Department, Town Gas, MTRC are responsible for monitoring settlements and their impacts on public safety. The MTRC are not the sole stakeholder. In deciding the maximum trigger levels, the government and MTRC would consider the conditions of different public utilities, and they conducted meticulous calculations. We urge the MTRC and government to be honest and open, and they should not cause excessive concern in the society. In the face of all various issues from the SCL, it's important to learn a lesson, and the relevant construction works should be transparent. All these are, of course, natural, but as I said, these works issues are highly technical in nature. They might not be readily understood by the public, so we should not make empty speculations or cause concerns or scares. We should leave this in the hands of professionals in order to avoid undue doubts in the public or affect the reputation of the engineering sector. If we invoke the LegCo PMP Ordinance to investigate the incidents as suggested in the motions, the engineering issues would be made political, and the work of the independent COI might be jeopardized, and this is not an answer to our problems. Myself and the BPA would not support the motions moved by Ms. Claudia MO and Mr. LAM Cheuk-ting. They are unnecessary, inappropriate at this stage, and they cannot help solve the problem. Thank you.
Mr. Lee, President, I first declare that my employer is the auditor of the MTRCL. I don't take part of any of the work related to MTR. That the MTR SCL have been scandal ridden, and yet the SCL have been most hardest hit. Holistically speaking, there were 4 mistakes committed by MTRCL and the government conceal the mistakes and successful cost overruns, and with the commissioning date being postponed indefinitely. Each of them is a severe mistake. DAB regard the MTRCL's performance at SAP is an utter failure and did not meet public expectations and would need to be fully accountable. And DAB would issue the strongest condemnation, urging the government would need to hold it accountable. The MTR have been regarded by the world as the top railway system in the world famous for reliability, and the operations and the management have been world famous. And yet the SCL works have been exposed of the substandard steel works, and with the wall shaving, and with the multiple stations have either subsidence or above levels, and it was reported that the town gas pipe was distorted by the settlement. It shows that it's not only an sporadic phenomenon, or maybe a systematic discrepancy. What disappointed the public the most, after a series of exposures, the MTR management and the regulatory authorities have been kept in the dark. And Frederick Ma, the chairman of the MCR, when being asked by the press, should the management have nothing to do on Leighton, and it claims that the secretary claims that it only learned the problems from the news bulletin. It shows that when the work supervision and notification mechanism, there'll be a severe mishap. Besides, the lack of governance is always the concealment of settlement. More disappointing is that the MTR management's attitude. So after a series of mishaps, they not come clean to promise improvements. They choose to conceal it. When exposed by the press, they choose to beat around the bush. And La Toc Wan station residents have found a lot of cracks in their home and had complained to the MTR in the past. And yet the MTR response claimed that the buildings have been very aged, and maybe it was caused by the residents conducting own repairs. In other words, have nothing to do with the SCL. And the district council had discovered that at the document submitted to the SCL related subcommittee, and it was written that the settlement levels were considered to be normal. When the press reported that the settlement had beyond preset levels, which led to anger at DC, the deliberate concealing from the DC and the public would lead to the sink in confidence. Next, with the cost overruns, I believe that the construction price of SCL may be the highest in history. Well, the public wouldn't want to have it so expensive. However, one of the major cost of overruns, it was found any heritage, and then a bomb was found, and now we see all these supervision issues. I believe that the final tap will be astronomical. It's one thing to be expensive, but besides being expensive, they led to all sorts of problems. In the future, the LegCo will need to have pressure to supplement appropriations. I hope the government need to investigate whether the cost overruns are not justified. Which of them should be borne by the MTRCL? Which of them should not be paid by the taxpayers? The government should make that clear, so as to not to make the taxpayer pick up the tab. And now there's no commissioning date. The member for the constituency we've been waiting for so long, and I could say this as just one incident after another for SCL. First, the ancient heritage found, and next to this, the wartime bomb discovery. The commissioning date was supposedly be the next year. I repeatedly chased the government, and I've been chased by the public, and yet to be no firm answer. So since the exposure incident, shouldn't the government provide an anticipated commissioning date? So the Mata White Road is still blocked for construction, which really disturbed the public. And with all this series of work quality issues, the public are usually concerned. I hope that the Bureau can respond. What is the expected commissioning date? President, in the space of so many issues, we're actively following up. Besides holding their persons accountable, most importantly, we need to address the most imminent concern with urge for independent investigation. And after the Hong Kong station substantial steel bar works being exposed, I immediately request Secretary Frank Chan to appoint a COI led by a retired judge, as well as to summon the main contractor and subcontractors to locate responsibility for an inquiry held by a retired judge that with high credibility and professionalism. And the COI led by Judge Hartman have begun a hearing, and the public already noticed, and the public has been closely following the progress, and the outcome is expected to come within 6 weeks. I think that the government should wrap up the inquiry as soon as possible and make the report public. If in the process it would discuss other systemic issues of failure, for example, Tokwa 1 exhibition station, there should be no further delay, and also conduct investigation on the 2 stations. More importantly, to ensure safety. And after the settlement found to be exceeded preset levels, besides setting up as inquiry, we also urge the government to inspect on the safety to assure the public, instead of yelling to the residents and claim the building is dangerous. You need to solve the problems. So Tokyo 1 is very hardest hit sin is contain a lot of urgent buildings. After much negotiation, the authorities promise as sent the police staff to inspect structural safety, and the MTRCL, the town gas company, at multiple residents meeting to answer questions. I hope the administration aware that this is not the end of the story. That after commissioning, the date will time sooner or later. There will be elected a new round of subsidence, since there will be trains going under. So the public will urge the monitoring and well as the warranty by MTRCL should be extended to 3 years after commissioning. I hope that the Secretary can offer a proactive response to the residents' concern to offer further assurances. Thirdly, that to offer compensation. During the FCL construction, a lot of residents have detected cracks in their units. Every time they complain to SCL, then they will appoint to a loss adjuster. And the response that your building is quite old and it was caused by you conducting your own repairs, not responsible. After subsidence being reported, the residents are even more worried. So at the subcommittee on matter related to railways, we urge the MTR management to consider the impact caused by the subsidence and offer substantive compensation. I know that the MTRs is proactively considering to offer assistance to residents. I hope that the public who is closely following this and those in need will continue to liaise with our ward office. We had never stopped following up and hope to address their most pressing need. And fourth, urged for full accountability. The SCL project exposed the shortcomings when it comes to supervising mega projects, especially the contracting out supervision or the relationship between government and the MTR when it comes to work supervision. The government departments had a lot on their plate. However, the MTRCL, which is owned by 70-something by the government, we simply will not let it out of control by the government. What really went wrong? And now that things have, it's been for some time, it's time for the government to explain to the public. And earlier we proposed to the government, if it's been proved that the MTRL will need to take responsibility, that you need to deduct their product management fees proportionately. And if the management need to be accountable, that should be reflected in their remuneration. And now I will discuss whether the PIP should be invoked. And this motion is not the first time, and I believe it won't be the last one. And the performance of MTRCL have been very disappointing, and our issued to the PMP is the same. I think the work of LegCo is not an investigation body, and since we are now investigating a professional matter, we feel that it's better to be when CLI led by a judge, which they have legal procedures and with experts to assist in unearthing the truth. We hope that the COI can expedite its work to conclude draft report as soon as possible. After it is made public, we'll continue to supervise. If necessary, we will follow up. I note that the COI led by Judge Hartman and have been in full swing, and the criminal investigation by the police is conducted in parallel. And the administration, besides, need to work with different investigation. Like I said, there are other matters which the public expect the government to continue to follow up and to brief the public regularly. For example, the safety of the SCL, the compensation to nearby residents, and the commissioning issues, and what kind of lessons that could be learned, and how do we enhance the MTRCL governance. I believe that these are the area of concern for the public. I hope that the government that can respond later to let the public get a better idea of the actual progress to submit.
Mr. Alvin Young. Thank you, President. In this term of the Legislative Council, we have invoked the PMP ordinance for the 4th time this time around. But strictly speaking, it should be the 5th time because we are having a joint debate. Ms. Claudia MO's and Mr. LAM Cheuk-ting's motions are to be debated jointly. Of course, we will support the motions by the two colleagues. Both motions concentrate on land subsidence problem at 2 stations of SCL. This is different from the last 3 occasions on which we invoked the PMP ordinance. On the last occasions, we were saying we would like to investigate into matters within the station. We hope that before commissioning, we should be able to identify problems so that we could rectify the problems and to ensure that there will be safety for passengers and also MTR workers who will be working at the stations. But this time around is different, President. The 2 PMP motions are to investigate into subsidence because the quality problem of SCL is not just about quality or the rail or the underground situation. But now it has gone above ground. It is now a livelihood issue, meaning even if I'm not a potential customer of SCL, well, I will not take it after it is commissioned. However, your project has caused cracks in my residential building and where I work, the building is also experiencing subsidence, and I'm in fear. There are over 20 buildings which are affected in To Kwa Wan. And also the CNE Center and also Fleet Arcade at Phoenix Pier, and also even the Hong Kong Coliseum and in Hong Kong, and all many people who are not going to use the SCL will work and visit these places. Some companies have changed the plans unilaterally, and then there are departments who did not call a stop to the works even if there was subsidence, and then the MTRCL did not rectify the situation. All these people have created fear for Hong Kong people. We once had so much confidence in the large corporations. We once had confidence in public bodies, and now these people should shoulder the responsibility. President, let us cast our eyes on this chamber. The majority of pro-establishment camp members were dissatisfied with MTRCL, and these are the problems that we are seeing, and they are also expressing dissatisfaction, and they are indeed asking who should be blamed. Therefore, we can see that the repercussion this time around is not political in nature. It is about Hong Kong people. The majority of Hong Kong people have spoken up. Ms. Dari Lee, Ms. Ann Chang said it so well. They are very concerned about residents, and they appeal to residents to pay them a visit if there is a problem. Yes, this is the duty of legislators, but they are not social workers. They should not just be there to solve problems and tackle the fear of residents, but as legislators, since we are in this chamber, we have an additional duty to deal with the problem, and that is to help the public seek the truth and justice. Of course, I know there is the COI, and I do have every trust in the COI, which will be openly, fairly, and professionally do the gatekeeping work for us. But does it mean that they will not be in line with the functions of the LegCo? Does it mean that when we have the COI, we can sit with our arms folded and not do nothing? No. Is it that we are just political commentators, just making comments here? No. We have the constitutional duty. If the law confers that power on us, why don't we use it? Some colleagues say we are not professionals. Well, if that's the case, then what kind of independent select committee can accommodate us? Ms. Regina Ip talked about the previous select committees. Does it mean that we did not fulfill our duty in those investigations? Is it that we did not convince the public that we were fair? I don't think so. And also in 2012, West Kowloon Committee investigated into CY Leung. This was not mentioned by Mrs. Regina Ip. I don't think that select committee was unprofessional. If that's the case, why can't we have confidence in colleagues here? Why can't we allow us to exercise the function when we are given the power to do so, so that we can meet the expectations of the public on us? This is the fourth time we have mentioned invoking the PMP to investigate into SCL. Why is it that the Democrats are quite adamant in trying to invoke the PMP since we have already failed for 3 times? Why is it that the CLI has started work? We still want to do our part. As I said, this is our constitutional duty. We have the duty to show concern for the residents. We should comfort them, but I like to emphasize the point again. Because we have this lofty duty, we should find the truth for Hong Kong people. We have the duty to require Leighton, MTRCL, and departments to reveal the details here in Council. And in fact, we believe many councillors have questions in their mind and they want to put those questions directly to Leighton and the MTRCL. Then why don't you allow the other members to have this opportunity? Since we represent the public, we can then ask all those questions on behalf of the public directly here. That is the way we can give effect to what we should do. President, I'd like to make one point here. I don't think we should rely too heavily on the railway, but on the 16th of October, 4 lines broke down, and we could see that to a very large extent, the railway is instrumental for Hong Kong people. As I said, SCL has been much waited for people along the line, but I think they want a safe railway line which complies with Hong Kong standards. In the last 3 occasions, those people who voted against it, you have 2 more chances today. After the summer, I hope you now know exactly what grievances people are harboring and what the concerns of the public are. And I hope that after your sentiments precipitate, you will be able to return justice to Hong Kong people, that you will vote for those motions. So I speak.
Mr. Tony Chair. President, the Hong Kong section of the Express Rail Link was commissioned on the 23rd of September. There is room for improvement in terms of ticketing and the luggage arrangements, but the overall operation has been smooth. There has not been any issue so far with the once controversial co-location arrangement. The Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, which is integral to the Greater Bay Area, was also recently commissioned. Even though the relevant link roads have not been fully completed, to see 2 major infrastructure or transport infrastructure projects being realized within 1 year and 2 months is certainly an achievement. However, for the Sha Tin to Central Link project, the construction has not gone to plan, and there were a number of issues. Relics were unearthed at Sung Wong Toy Station. As such, some lines had to be realigned, and there was cost overrun, and there were also delays. Large bombs were excavated, and luckily there were no injuries or casualties. This year, the Hong Kong Station, To Kwan Station, and Exhibition Center Station were found to have substandard works, and the settlement readings were excessive, so some of the works had to be suspended. For the platform works at the Hong Kong Station extension works, there were the cutting of reinforcement bars, substandard concrete, illegal acts might have been committed, and there are safety concerns. And as such, it's hard to tell the commissioning date of the SEL. This is what the public does not want to see. The SEL incidents also affect public confidence on the MTRC and the government. And in terms of the reputation of Hong Kong in works quality and professionalism, they were also affected. As proxies of the public, the LegCo is obliged to monitor the government, and we should ask the MTRC and relevant contractors to explain the matter and whether there are any remedies and how similar occurrences can be prevented in the future. Before the summer recess, LegCo had 3 debates on investigating the SEL incidents under the Powers and Privileges Ordinance. Since October, 2 motions were raised under the LegCo PMP Ordinance to investigate the SEL. Of course, there were political considerations, but they also reflected public interest and dissatisfaction towards these works. Like what I said for the 3 previous motions, it's inappropriate for LegCo to investigate into the SEL. The Commission of Inquiry, chaired by a former judge of the CFA and with an expert as commissioner, are conducting hearings. An investigation report can be compiled within half a year. For the expert advisor team appointed by the MTRC and government, they are now deciding on the best way to deal with the Hong Kong Station works, including the possibility of tearing down some walls, to examine the quality of the concrete and steel bars. For these issues, we should defer to the professionals because they can launch professional and apolitical investigations. They should be allowed to identify the causes and responsibilities and whether there were human faults or policy issues. And they could come up with solutions or suggestions. By then, LegCo can follow up further. For example, by deciding whether some persons would need to be held accountable, for example, from the MTRC and government. I think this is a more effective arrangement. Ms. Claudia MO and Mr. LAM Cheuk-ting might say that their motions cover subsidence issues due to the SEL works, and whether the MTRC and government are concealing the matter or whether they are doing proper monitoring. This issue might be beyond the scope of the COI, and a separate investigation is warranted. I'm not an expert in subsidence, but I can say that most flat land in urban areas now were obtained largely through land reclamation. In major foundational excavation works, settlements are not unusual. The key is whether the settlement readings exceed the safety standards and whether the structure of surrounding buildings is jeopardized. If structure is not compromised and safety is not compromised, the past practice was that no announcement was needed. For excessive settlement readings at some of the sites along the SCL, having investigated the sites, the government decided to relax the relevant standards and allowed the works to continue, and it was not without reason. If we apply clear-cut standards to all types of works at different locations, well, these standards are often very strict and conservative. So can we tolerate higher settlement readings without jeopardizing safety? I think we have to leave it to the relevant experts and professionals, including engineers and land surveyors. They have to conduct site visits and examinations before they can draw a conclusion. For the viaducts and underground tunnel, or the station and ground level, the allowable settlement levels might be different. So these are technical and professional issues, and it's not ideal to defer the matter to LegCo. Finally, I want to offer some views on behalf of the trade. Some people feel that if the MTRC works have to do with properties, or that there is settlement at some of these properties, however slight, the MTRC would ask the relevant contractors to stop the works immediately. However, if other properties are affected by the MTRC works, I think we must align the standards and treatment, so we have to be consistent. Some surveyors said that we lack qualified land surveyors for many major infrastructure projects who could monitor the settlement readings. Hopefully, the government and MTRC would tackle these issues. Thank you.
Mr. Alokin, President, a lot of colleagues had mentioned that in invoking the PMP ordinance to investigate the SCL is not the first time. And well, even for the fourth and the fifth time, where the pandemics and the pro-establishment camp, I believe that all of us are quite familiar with this issue, and the justifications are roughly the same. And my colleagues said there's always the same rationale. I hope the members don't mind. Well, just like in the debating team, I will not repeat the same rationale since we know it backwards. I instead would devote the efforts to responding the rationale raised by some of their colleagues. I hope that you can generously accommodate my criticism. However, what I said was supposed to be fair. After listening to a few members, so I can start with Dr. Lo's speech first. I heard there are 3 points that's echoed by many members. Maybe the secretary probably sick of this repeated arguments. And like Mr. Lo, a lot of the pro-establishment colleagues mentioned that we invoked the LegCo PNP ordinance to investigate the SCL. That is the ultimate weapon of the LegCo. Well, your investigation will be duplicating the COI and not appropriate. At the same time, other members pointed out at the restrictions on the COI and starkly, or not intend to refute Dr. Lo, but in effect, she highlighted the deficiency. This current COI only limited investigation to the contract 1002, which is the Hong Lam station extension. And some of the pro-establishment camp claims that you need to expand the scope of the investigation. If you don't expand the scope, there's no way to address the concerns cited. And for the government, she wouldn't listen to the pro-establishment camp. Now that and want to make the COI more focused, thus unwilling to expand the scope. The government refused to expand the scope. So how do we investigate the Toko Wan station and the exhibition station? And the government has been hiding behind the COI and simply asking us to wait. According to Mr. Tony Chair, then we have to wait for at least 6 months. I wonder what will happen in the 6 months, and at the end, you're simply waiting for a inquiry outcome for the Hong Kong station. Does that mean there will be a new COI, or maybe use whatever means to deal with Toko Wan and Exhibition Center Station and other issues from SCL? If we had a choice, shouldn't the LegCo take a step further and be ahead of the government to investigate other matters? A lot of the viewpoints and facts. Well, some claim that we need a lot of time, so we can save 6 months by starting early, so that we can ask the MTR to come clean on issues of eminent public concern. And the second point raised by Dr. Lo, as echoed by other members, that the government's COI contain a lot of professionals. They're academics, lawyers. Why don't we listen to their professional advice and investigate by LegCo? Are we as professional as them? Well, I can say the terms of reference of the COI is only limited to Hong Kong extension. Let's say I trust the academics or experts and the lawyers or the expertise of their respective areas. But first, the advice we given in the context of the COI is only limited to Hong Kong station. So we ask them to comment on other stage wouldn't match the aim of the COI. So they're simply restricting themselves well, okay, the LegCo members, are they really that not professional? Well, we still ask question nonetheless. For those with professional qualifications, like Dr. Low himself is an engineer, and this term we have less engineers. We have quite a few lawyers here. I believe that you don't have to have the relevant professional qualifications to comment on this. And for the select committee can summon different people to explain. By that you can summon people from different expertise. I believe that they can compensate for the professional knowledge. I believe that in various panels and the SCL agenda items, I believe the advice provided be very professional, and I'm able to quickly utilize different legal knowledge to raise their questions. We have to believe in our own competence and our professionalism. Sometimes we're not confident of our own professionalism, and which seem to give the impression that the members have no idea what they're asking. We have to prove that we can, and I think we can. The third point is that if a select committee appointed by PNP, they would politicize the whole thing, it wouldn't help to resolve the problem, which the NJANG claims that he didn't see how the setting up a inquiry committee in LegCo would help the public. So let's take a look how the COI set up by the government can really help the public. So let me cite a past example. In 2014, Justice Hartman also set up an investigation committee to investigate on the cost overruns and delays of the high-speed rail project. And I believe this investigation would answer Riley's question. In her speech, she very much want Frank Chan to account for these cost overruns. So back in 2014, Judge Hartman has been leading an investigation panel on this. I wonder if you would quote this in her closing statement. So, on the SCL, as Starley had pointed out, she felt that the cost overrun may be astronomical. First, there were heritage artifacts found, and there were bomb problems, and now there's this substandard work. I believe that a lot of money would be spent. If we look at the Justice Hartman's suggestion, he would blame it on the concession approach. I wonder if anyone will follow up on this. Back then, the investigation committee findings were that he proposed that to modify the structure arrangements of the concession. Otherwise, you cannot address the cost overrun issue. For all along the building of railways, we will adopt the model of property development to compensate for the cost of railway construction, which is the ownership model. Now we have so many top development that were owned by the MCR. So I'm assigning you to build this railway, and I will allow you to develop the station structure. And some would challenge that, or would encourage the MCR to become a property empire. Is there some kind of a transfer of interest? Well, on the transport history, that's very much part of it. And the government, eager not to repeat the same mistakes, there's also a kind of as and so the ownership was reverted to MTR, and the government was given a concession to run the railway. Well, this happened to exploit. If since the railway is not owned by me, I'll probably not be too cautious, as probably the supervision of contractors is not as diligent as before. I have no idea if that's the truth, but it's a hypothesis that which we need to study and to verify. And just to mention, for the ownership model to the concession model, so the concession model that there is less strict supervision with more cost overrun. He didn't point out engine works problem, and yet it's still popping up today. Is that exactly the cause? So 4 years on, the investigation led by Judge Hartman, as of today, what kind of follow-up had the government do? And I see the history repeating itself. And it proved to a certain extent, when you claim that the COI work, and if they handled by LegCo, it would be too political. So when you decide to deal with something, it's already political. That's politics 101. Second, the government set up COI doesn't mean a solution to all. The 2014 Judge Hartman panel suggestions, I don't see any follow-up. And for LegCo, to invoke the PNP ordinance, I believe would have its own role to play. So we are ahead of the government, and to complement the shortcomings of the COI, and with this unveil the issue before the public, just like a lot of DAB members stress that I want to get to the bottom of things, and Chang and claim that I couldn't sell or rent out their buildings. So if you want to follow up that, we have try other means. Sorry for frightening Dr. Priscilla Leung. I don't meant to frighten anyone. I'm just imitating. Well, we need to resort to more creative methods to get this. That's why I agreed to invoke the PNP. Finally, on the issue of subsidence, this is need to be dealt with the professionals. It also highlight the issue that shouldn't and the subsidence trigger levels be relaxed. So a lot of us were concerned that why do you prescribe a stricter standard in the first place that led to a widespread exceedance, and some of the monitoring points. Some would claim that the settlement has slowed down. However, some is still ongoing. So how do we account for this? We have repeatedly urged the government to provide the settlement data, but can you establish a regular mechanism to deal with these settlement problem? And we also need to chase the MTRCL. If we can have a consensus that for the residents of To Kwa Wan, there will be potential that buildings damaged, shouldn't the MTR consider compensation, or actually they colluded with the loss adjuster? I found it very despicable. You can't let MTRCL off the hook. I so submit.
Mr. Ray Chen, President. There have been subsequent problems at SCL. Remember, before the summer, we demanded that with regard to the steel bar and couplers problem at Hong Kong Station, we asked for a select committee. In the past few months, the MTRCL exposed that there was no notification to the government before plans were revised, and there was abnormal settlement at 2 stations, but then you turned a blind eye to the crises. You just relaxed the trigger values, and it is now exposed also that the diaphragm wall was not built according to the plan, so that there was a big reduction of steel bars connecting the diaphragm wall. All these are really unsettling. It's like a soap opera. It's like a thriller. What is most scary? It's that it is not just the MTRCL or the contractors, and not only the administration, but also this Legislative Council. You are saying, why should we ask for select committees to be set up invoking the P&P ordinance so many times? It is because you have objected every time, and so the problems have snowballed. And more problems are exposed. The entire society would want to know why, given that the MTRCL is such an experienced mass transit operator and which has undertaken so many projects, would still run into such problems. Why is the MTRCL covering up the problems? Not only the MTRCL, but then the government should be held responsible. Are you keeping the problems from us? Is there a problem with project monitoring so that the MTRCL can hide the problems? Well, we can regret the MTRCL, we can regret the government, and many people are regretting. Ms. Anne Chang was the one who staged the best show. She said we should go to the bottom, we should seek out who is to blame, and we should return justice to the people, and so I object to the motions. What is the logic in what she said? So, members of the public, when you listen to members' speeches, you have to listen them out as if, Ms. Anne Chang was angrier than Ms. Claudia MO and was more concerned than Mr. LAM Cheuk-ting, but in the end she said she won't support the motions. Some members preferred to stay silent. That's better, but those who put up a show of being very concerned, being very angered, they would say such rosy things, and in the end they would just veto the motions. Now, how can you be accountable to the public? Talking about the sloppy monitoring work, the pro-establishment camp have preferred to stay silent. But even if some shout and lash out at those parties, they would still not support independent investigation. The motion today is to discuss whether, when there is a COI set up by government to investigate into the Hon LAM station, the LegCo should set up a select committee to investigate into contractors, including revising plans without approval and also settlement in 2 stations. I will now explain why we should support those 2 motions. Number 1, the COI set up by government will not investigate into the scope requested by Ms. Claudia MO and Mr. LAM Cheuk-ting. And also, the public are asking us to go to the bottom of the matter. And number 3, the administration and the MTRCL may not do serious follow-up work, but the Legislative Council investigation will be more objective. And number 4, the existing COI is in a way going to be a fig leaf for the administration. However, the Legislative Council will be able to exert more pressure on the administration so that it has to respond to the various issues about SCL. And I believe the public would be more forthcoming in exposing stories to the Legislative Council Select Committee. The COI's scope of work is such that it is not comprehensive. In fact, we pointed that out on day 1. That is why members are referring to different scopes of investigation and also different coverage that is required. This is because in the last few months, we have heard of abnormal settlement at different stations. The COI will only look into the project at Hon LAM Station. But in the last few months, we have exposed that around Tokyo 1 station, at many monitoring points, there have been abnormal, long drawn out and large scale settlement. And also, we have exposed that at Exhibition Center Station, there is exceedance in settlement. Why? Were there these subsidence problems? When did the MTR know? When did the administration know? Did the MTRCL and the administration deliberately hide the issue? Who should be blamed for subsidence problems? But the COI set up by the administration will not tackle these issues because the jurisdiction is limited to the Hong Ham station extension. Nobody, not even the media, can conduct in-depth investigation. The MTRCL and the administration did not come clean in the last few months and also in disclosing to the public what they knew. It was so difficult to question MTRCL and government officials. If the COI cannot look into subsidence problems and if the public cannot pose questions directly to the MTRCL and the administration on subsidence, then the best way to do it is to allow the Legislative Council to set up a select committee to summon officials and the MTRCL to answer settlement questions. Now, of course, this is what the public want. We should not just sit here and wait for COI to complete its work. And of course, some members have been more cautious. They say, okay, at this stage, I'm not going to support you, but let us see what the COI does. If I'm still not satisfied, I will see what I can do. Okay, you can drag your feet, but then people who live in Kowloon West are extremely unsettled. In fact, the railway has caused different levels of impact on people around it, say on agricultural land in the new territories. And if you ask these problems, the MTRCL will ask laws adjusters to adjust the claims. And in the majority of cases, the loss adjuster will say, okay, the building is damaged, even if there is the drying up of underground water basins, so you have no water to irrigate your field and no water to feed your fish. They will say it had nothing to do with the MTRCL project. In the majority of cases, residents affected were not given reasonable compensation. And the MTRCL did not even have to apologize because the loss adjuster said it had nothing to do with MTRCL. In the Tokyo 1 settlement issue, if still the MTRCL will be able to get its own loss adjusters to assess the situation, you can preempt the result. Just like before, the loss adjuster would say there was no prominent impact on the building, and if there are cracks, if there is total discharge of underground water, those had nothing to do with the project. The MTRCL has patronized some loss adjusters for very long, and of course they wouldn't like to offend the MTRCL, so they seldom reached conclusions that were disadvantageous to the MTRCL. If the residents get their own loss adjuster, the MTRCL will say those are not fair, and then if you resort to court procedures, the costs can escalate to a very high level, and residents will only stand to lose. I hope that if we can set up a select committee here, if we can use LegCo powers to summon MTRCL and the administration to come and talk about settlement problems, and if we can force the MTRCL to disclose the relevant information, then we will be able to do something about the buildings which are owned by residents and whether that the subsidence had anything to do with MTRCL, and also to delineate responsibility between the MTRCL and the government. If there is any part of the work that was not done properly, then the MTRCL should apologize and compensate, and then we can assign the responsibility. Particularly in Tokyo 1, what responsibility should be assigned to the MTRCL? In fact, in future, we councillors might have to help residents seek compensation. Somebody reminded me that residents were not only asking for disclosure. They were asking for solutions. One of the biggest problems that they would like to resolve is who should take responsibility for their losses. Pro-establishment camp members today object to the setting up of the select committee. Then residents can only rely on the MTRCL mechanism, which is not viewed as fair and just by them. But if you can all support the motion, if we can join hands to make use of a way that wins the trust of the public and to seek responsibility, then no matter what the consequence is, we can show the Hong Kong public that we have done our best, that we are not just sitting here and trust the work to others. We should not sit here with our arms folded and wait for results. Will the administration really follow up the entire incident? In fact, apart from subsidence, Mr. LAM Cheuk-ting's motion has also mentioned the monitoring of contractors and unilateral revision of plans. Now, it was said that this could be looked into by the COI. Why should we want to play a part? As I said, we can see that the MTRCL and the administration just have no incentive to be proactive in revealing the truth. Now, the alteration to the construction drawings include the platform and the diaphragm. They have not been approved by the buildings department, and the public are suspecting that the contractor is doing it to cut corners. Many people tell me that if the new plans are better than the old ones, as the MTRCL said, then why did they just not follow the procedures and apply to BD? Is it that because they want to cut corners, so they are keeping this to themselves? And in fact, the MTRCL might know it, and still the contractors were able to use altered plans. In the eyes of the public, well, this is something they would like to find out. The alteration to construction drawings is a very important matter. Now, we still don't know whether the administration has the incentive to follow up. According to recent reports, the MTRCL knew very early that the contractor were cutting the number of rebars in the diaphragm wall, but the MTRCL only heard that there would not be any imminent danger, and they just allowed it to go on. So the MTR's attitude was that near enough is good enough. And it was said that even the basement design at Hong Kong Station has been altered without approval, but the BD had only assigned it to poor communication, and the BD said there would not be any imminent safety problem. Okay, fine. I grant you that there would not be any imminent safety problem. But then there could be an impact. Much later, the station will be there 10 years, 20 years down the road, and if the plans have been altered, if corners were cut, there could be problems at a later stage. Therefore, the residents have no choice. Last time I was so angry because the secretary said that if we investigate, then there would be an impact on commissioning and the railway operation. And I was asking, what is more important, time, people's lives, money? And you can see that disclosures have continued. They do not go to the COI, but they tell reporters, they tell councillors. Mr. Michael Tin has not spoken today. I'll get him to come back here to see whether he supports the motions. We have raised so many questions. When the pro-establishment camp vetoed the motions, how can you face us? We are reflecting the worries of the public. This is not political setup. This is not creating a storm out of nothing. But we are entrusted by the public to get the MTRCL and the administration to be accountable.
Mr. Charles Ma.